The war in my country taught me a lesson I will never forget. That is, you must always know how to save food for when there is nothing left. Hello, it's great to see you again on the Clever Tricks channel. Rice, something we use every day, still has an expiration date if kept in a bag. But with proper storage, it can last 20 years or even longer. Today, I'll share exactly how I did it. I have created subtitles in multiple languages. Please select your preferred language. Comment below and let me know which country you are watching from. It's amazing that we can connect from all around the world. I put the rice in clean glass jars. The most important thing is that the jars must be completely dry, because even a little moisture can spoil the rice over time. I gently shook the jar to let the rice settle, then filled it to the brim. While food is readily available, store it so that when it runs out, you won't have to worry about going hungry. Dear friends, do you like eating rice? Please leave me a message. I placed all the filled jars on a tray and put them in the oven while it was still cool. Then I turned the oven on to 110 degrees Celsius. Once the oven reached this temperature, I kept the jars in the oven for 90 minutes, during which time the temperature remained stable. While you wait, I'd love to know which country and city you're watching this video from. It's heartwarming to think that we're watching each other from all over the world. After 90 minutes, I only took one jar out of the oven. The oven was still on. The jar and rice were very hot at this point, so all actions had to be done immediately. I wiped the rim of the jar clean. The lid was sterilized beforehand in boiling water for 15 minutes, then dried in an oven at 50 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. The lid must be completely dry. I put the lid on while the jar was still hot. Take out one jar at a time. Do not let the jars cool before closing the lids. Where are you from? It's such a joy that we're connecting from all over the world. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for your support. As the jar cools, you will see the center of the lid indent. This indicates that the process was successful. If the lid does not indent, it means the jar is not ready yet. Once everything has cooled completely, I store the jars in a dark, dry place. These jars of rice can last for 20 to 30 years. If you like this method, please leave me a heart. Next, I store the oatmeal for breakfast. There's something very strange in the kitchen. That is, the driest looking things are usually the ones that spoil the fastest. Actually, oatmeal isn't as dry as we think. It easily absorbs moisture from the air, especially in hot, humid weather, and just a little bit of moisture is enough for mold and insects to appear. It's not that the oatmeal is bad, but rather that we're not storing it correctly. I put the oatmeal in an airtight container, which could be a glass jar or a thick plastic food-grade container. Then I added a very simple detail to each jar, a small packet of desiccant or a few grains of raw rice wrapped in tissue paper. These small things help the oats dry out faster each day. Simply keeping them tightly sealed prevents a lot of moisture and insects from getting in. Instead of keeping oatmeal in the kitchen cupboard, I put the jar of oatmeal in the refrigerator. This might sound strange, but it helps prevent the oatmeal from getting moldy or infested with insects and keeps it fresh for a long time. Every time I use it, I always remember one small thing: dry hands, dry spoon. Close the container tightly as soon as you're done. Just a few simple habits, but they help keep the entire jar clean, dry, and safe. If you also regularly store oatmeal at home, try changing your storage method a little. You'll notice a significant difference. Next, I did the same with the flour. The jars were washed clean. I poured the flour in, shook gently to let the flour settle, and filled the jars to the brim. I arranged the jars on a tray and put them in the oven while it was still cool. Then turn on the oven to 100 degrees Celsius. Once the oven reached the desired temperature, I left the jars in the oven for 90 minutes. Then, I took each jar out, wiped the rims, and put the lids back on while they were still hot. Everything had to be done carefully. Continue the same steps with the other jar. When the jars have cooled, the lids should be slightly indented. That's when they're ready. I let the jars cool naturally and then store them in a dark place. This type of flour can be stored for over 20 years. Finally, there's pasta. Packaged pasta also has an expiration date, but when properly packaged in jars, it can last for many years. I put the noodles into a dry container, filled it to the brim, and arranged them on a tray. I sterilized the lids and jars, then put everything in the oven to cool. Then turn on the oven to 100 degrees Celsius and keep it there for 90 minutes. Each jar is removed while still hot. The rim is wiped clean and the lid is tightly closed. All operations must be done while the jar is still hot. It's such a joy that we're connecting from all over the world. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for your support. When the jar cools, the lid sinks down. That's when I know I've done it right. I store the jars in a dark place. They can last for many years, 20 years or more. If you found this helpful, please leave me a like and a heart. Thank you, dear friends, for always being here and listening.